Hi, and welcome to your new Ducati SuperSport 950. Today we're going to cover some of the basics on the 950 and the 950S. They have a lot in common, so there's going to be a lot of crossover. While you're watching this video, please give me a favor and subscribe and hit that bell icon if you want to see some new videos from us and get some updates. And also make sure you comment and let us know what else do you want me to cover while I'm doing these things. Until then, let's talk about the bike. All right, before we go over anything, let's really take a minute and admire this beautiful motorcycle. Ducati did a really good job of borrowing some of the design elements from the Panigale lineup and giving it that really great aggressive styling while still maintaining the bike's comfort, which is really the secret ingredient of this bike. It looks really good, it handles extremely well, and it's very comfortable where you can ride it all the time. So I hope you do that. But let's talk about some of the technical stuff and what it is they give to you, starting with the S model that we have in front of us. First things first, you're going to notice the gold forks up front. That means this bike got the Ohlins suspension on there that's fully adjustable, and you have an Ohlins shock in the back as well, and that really helps a lot with just the compliance of the ride of the motorcycle. So I hope you really take advantage of that and enjoy it, whether you're on the streets or taking it to the tracks and everything in between. Talking about styling, you've got these beautiful full LED headlights with this daytime running lamp that is automated, and I'll go over how you can turn that on and off if you want to, but for time being, you just leave it on automatic, and as long as it's bright out, these will be on, and as soon as it gets a little bit dark, the headlights will come on for you. I love the integrated turn signals in the mirrors, just makes a really good clean look, and then also the headlights, fully LED. And while we're on the subject of styling still, two things back here to really take note of. On the S model specifically, you get this really neat seat cover that kind of lends itself to a more sporty look, and it's really easy to remove. I'll show you how in a second. And the world famous Ducati single-sided swing arm that really shows off that rear tire and rear wheel. One of my favorite things about the SuperSport lineup is that they come with the quick shift option standard on the motorcycles. Transmission is wonderful on this bike, but that quick shifter is just extra buttery, and it makes it where you can just concentrate on the ride and just up and down it at your whim, and it'll auto rev match on downshifts for you. Another great benefit of the SuperSport is the clip-on handlebars being over the triple tree, and as you can see, I'm in a very neutral seating position. Lots of leg space as well. I'm a little bit over 6'1", and I am super comfy on this motorcycle. And let's not forget about one of the neatest hidden features of this motorcycle, the adjustable windshield. All you need to do is both hands firmly here and pull straight up if you want a little bit more wind protection. If you're done with it, you can just press down firmly and it pops right in securely in its spot. Okay, so you're about to fire this baby up and go riding into the sunset. A couple of things to keep in mind. You just bought it. It probably doesn't have a lot of miles on it and it's got to get broken in. So probably take care of two things here. One, let your local dealership know that you got to do a break-in so they can put you into their schedule just in case they get busy and you can get it in and out pretty quickly. The other thing is, how do you break a bike in? That's a common question that we get asked every day as we sell motorcycles here. So there's a lot of different answers there, and the Ducati has done a really good job of just saying ride the bike for 1,000 kilometers, so about 620 something miles. A little indicator on the dash will come on and let you know that it's time to do your first service. There's different ways of doing that. What I usually tell people is this: try to avoid droning, so being in the same gear for an overly long period of time. You might live by a highway and you got to get somewhere and you just want to get on it for a couple hours. Try not to do that. It's better to introduce the bike to, loads from first to sixth gear all the way up, and then also negative loads the other way as well. So these are a couple of little different ways to continuously run the motor and just kind of make sure it gets used to the way it's supposed to be ridden. Don't baby it too much, but don't redline it either, and just kind of have fun with it. And again, just ride it regularly for about 600 and something miles. A little light will come on and let you know it's time to the break-in. And then after you've done that, oh man, you get to have all the fun. You can redline the thing, have some fun with it, take it to track days. The list goes on and on. As per usual Ducati standard, you have one key that rules them all. This key does have a chip in it, so if you do lose it, you're gonna have to do a little bit of work with your local Ducati dealer and get a key that is gonna be perfectly programmed to this motorcycle. But for timing, let's talk about what it does. Three main functions. One's gonna be for ignition and locking, the other one's gonna be to get into the tank, and the last one is to get the seat off of this thing so you can take this cowl off or get underneath the seat for any other reasons. So, first things first, put the key in. If you wanna turn it on, turn it to the right, and it wakes the bike up. All right, so let's say you wanna turn off the bike and lock it. The same key will turn off the bike, and if you wanna lock it, you press it down to lock it, but right now it's not letting me because I have to go all the way to the one side or the other. So now that it is, it's in the lock position, and we got a secured motorcycle. And if you wanna unlock it, insert the key in, push it all the way around, good to go. This part's a little self-explanatory, but I'll show it to you anyway. So also you can get into the gas tank, fill it up, and then when you're done, just press down and you'll hear it click. Take the key out and you're done. Last but not least, we're gonna use the key to be able to pick up the seat so we can access a couple of things. So you simply turn it, you'll hear it click, lift up on the seat and back. Now you'll notice that under the seat, there is a toolkit and a little power port for you to be able to plug in a USB ports. Also, as long as you have this up, you can use the tools that are in here to get the seat cowl off of there if you want to give a passenger a ride. So pretty easy to just undo these two bolts and slide it off and then put it back in. There's got two little notches in the front that just got to go in, and then an audible click, and we're back to normal. I come across a surprising amount of people who don't know how to use a quick shifter properly. It's a lot simpler than you think it is. So it's a standard clutch actuated transmission, but you're only going to use the clutch for really the first gear. Now on Ducati's bikes, they like it when you give them a lot of positive throttle or negative throttle when you're using it. But basically, here's how it works. Clutch in for the first gear, and then after that, you're gonna give the bike positive throttle, and you're gonna kick it up without using the clutch, and it'll simply shift it for you. It actually slows down the timing enough to have a smooth transition to the next gear up for you. On gear down, you roll off the throttle, kick it down without using the clutch, and it'll auto rev match for you all the way from 6th, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way to the bottom. And again, if you wanna upshift again, you just positive throttle and kick it up. Try it a couple times. It's a lot smoother than you think it is. Okay, let's talk about the controls on this motorcycle, and we'll start with the right-hand side. First things first, you got your throttle, and then a big bright red button on the top that has 3 positions on there. If you push it all the way forward, the bike is completely off. If you push it here, this will allow you to turn the bike on, but you don't have a separate starter switch. So if you pull it all the way down, if the bike is in neutral, you don't need the clutch, you just pull it down, the bike starts. So pull down on this. And then if the bike is in gear, make sure you pull the clutch in, as long as the kickstand's not up, or down rather, and you can fire the bike up. I always tell people to try to make it a habit of trying the bike on in neutral so you don't have to worry about suddenly letting go of the clutch. Next set of buttons, one has a little light on there. That is to turn the daytime running lamps on and off manually. Now the bike does have an auto function for the daytime running lamps, but if you wanted to, you press this once, the little green light on the dash goes away, means the DRL are off. Press it again, the little green light's back on the dash and the DRL is on. Below that, you've got your hazard switch. If you just simply push it to the right, all your hazard lights come on. So that every blinker on the bike is going off now. And what's cool with that is once you get that started, if you turn the bike off, the hazard lights continue on in case you were somewhere inclement. Okay, now we're on the left handlebar, same as where the clutch is at. You've got a handful of buttons on this one. We'll start with the trigger finger. That's gonna be your little pass light. If you need to make a quick pass, this allows you to turn the high beams on and off quickly. Now there is a separate high beam switch on the bike. If you press this up where my thumb was, that'll turn them on permanently, and on the down position is your low beams. Next to that is your up and down button, and we'll go over this later on as we're going over the dash, but this is what we're gonna use if I say up and down. Below that is your turn signal for right and left. I just did left and right instead to confuse you a little bit. And if you look at it, it'll say mode and enter. So it kind of 3 functions to the press on this one. If the turn signal is on, if you press it once, it cancels the turn signal. If you press it again only one time, it'll go to whatever function you have selected on that dash. But if you press it and hold it, is when it takes us into our mode selection. I'll go over that here in a little bit for you. And then below that is your horn, my favorite. First things first, let's select what mode you want to ride in. Chances are the bike is probably in sport mode because we're Ducatis and we like to go fast, but let's select the one you want. So the enter / select / turn signal cancellation button, we're going to press that in and hold it, and then you'll see on the dash that it's now in the mode selection. So you have sport, touring, and urban. Now if you look, each one of those has a specific set of rules on there. For instance, you have your engine performance, power, your traction control, your ABS, and wheelie control, and whether your quick shift is on or off. We can change those later on. I'll show you how to do that. For time being, if you want to select one of the other modes, let's say you want to be in urban, just hit it once and it'll select it for you. Now, if you're riding the motorcycle and you've got the throttle on, and you can still do the thing. So I'll pull the throttle on, press a little bit, go to the next one, and it'll tell you to close the throttle. Ducati does this because they don't want you to go from low power to high power while you're just steadily on the throttle. They would rather you modulated it yourself for safety. And then let's move on to the next. Okay, let's run through your dash and what all there is going on this thing. A lot of information on it, but after you stare at it for a couple of minutes, it'll all be really familiar to you. We'll start at the top left. You've got a fuel gauge. A lot of people love that one. Just below that, you have your first set of windows for information. So on this one right now, you see settings menu. If I was to click down, it'll take us to our lap timer, and that's great if you're gonna do a track day. And then there is below that another window that you can collect to right underneath your speedometer. If you press the down button and hold it for a couple of seconds, it'll highlight that. So now we've got information like range on the tank, trip 1, consumption on trip 1, average speed on trip 1, and then how long you've been on trip 1. And then you go to trip 2, and general consumption that's happening right now on the motorcycle. Currently it's off, so it's at 0, and the total amount of mileage on there. I'm gonna keep scrolling down again to show you one more time. After range, you've got trip 1, and what happens if I press enter once and tell it yes to reset this, and what it happens, what it does to the rest of the information. So if we scroll down now, trip 1 is 0, consumption on trip 1 is also 0, speed of trip 1 is 0, and trip time is back to 0. So if you're gonna be riding this bike long distance, it's really a neat way to kind of take some notes on what's happening with your fuel range and how long you've been on that particular leg of the ride. And trip 2 is still untouched, and then back to consumption and total. Below that, you've got your air temperature, just ambient air temperature based on what the air intake is telling you. Right next to that, you've got the little headlight symbol with the little A on there. That is for your daytime running lamp. Again, if that is on automatically, it'll have a little A on there. If we turn it off manually, that little light will go away, as I show here. And then we're gonna go all the way to the right here where you've got a beautiful big tachometer, and in the middle of that you've got your gear indicator. To the top of that you've got your time, and then below that you've got two little windows. One is telling you what kind of situation your bike's in, as far as whether the quick shifter's on, what your traction control is at, what your ABS is at, and what kind of wheelie control setting you have. And then below that is your your motorcycle's engine temperature. Currently the bike is off, so it's just showing low. Okay, now let's get into the really thick stuff. So we're gonna work our way back up to the settings menu, and we're gonna press enter once. And this is where you can change a lot of things about your motorcycles. The one part that really interests most people is, how do I change my riding mode? Well, first thing that you see on the menu for setting is the riding mode selection. We're gonna press enter once on there, and it'll show us that we can change the urban, touring, and sport. So let's go into sport, and we're just gonna show this one, and then I'll let you play with that on your own time. Sport mode. First things first, engine. If you press enter once in engine, you've got an option for high, medium, or low. And you can see low, it's indicating that it's smoother, reduced power, whereas medium is smoother with full power, and then high is dynamic or really, really sporty with high power. Most people like to leave it on this mode, on their sport mode, because they're gonna use the bike for really spirited rides or track riding on this particular mode. So we'll leave high alone, we'll go back. Now we're gonna scroll down one click to Ducati traction control, enter. Now you can see on sport mode right now it's set at 3, but you can go all the way to off if you don't want any traction control, and then kind of work your way up incrementally to have more and more and more and more and more traction all the way to 8. On sport, I typically like it at 3 or 2, so I'll put this on 2. Next is ABS. Again, you can go all the way to down to 1. So 1 is the sportiest setting, where there is no ABS on the rear wheel. So for those of you that like to slide it in and back it into a corner, this is probably the best way to be. And then on 2 is a little sportier, it's somewhere in the middle, and it's got cornering ABS on it. And on 3, it's probably the most amount of ABS that you'll get, and it still has cornering ABS. So something to keep in mind, that when you have it on 1, it's only on the front wheel, and there is no cornering ABS anymore. So it depends on what kind of riding you like to do. We'll leave it on 2 here. Go back. Next is Ducati Wheelie Control. We'll click enter on that one. Again, we're gonna go up and down to kind of show you. You've got all the way to off for those of you that like to do some dank wheelies out there, and then you kind of work your way up to have more and more and more restriction all the way to 4. So we'll leave it on 1. Yeah, we'll leave it on 1. Keeping it sporty around here. And then next is Ducati Quick Shift. And it's basically on or off. There's no more options of just having upshifts on and downshifts off. You either have it on or you have it off. So for those of you that are a little more old-fashioned and want to have the complete control of the bike with the clutch, you can just put it on off and it'll never ever interfere in case your foot suddenly touches the shifter. So I'll leave it on because I really, really love the way the quick shifter works. And then if you have messed with any of the settings, you'll notice that the little default has been lit up now. That means there are no wrong answers in this. You can mess with the settings all you want, and if you don't like what's happening, you can just simply hit default, and that's it. It's back at that default mode for that specific kind of riding mode. So if you want to do any of your modes and you want to change them, you just go into riding mode, press enter, and kind of work your way through it one by one for sport, touring, and urban. Next thing is the fuel indicator. There's two options here. You can either have it just show the level from empty to full, or the range will actually give you estimated mileage based on your current riding style. A lot of people like the level, so I'll just leave it there. Next, you have daytime running lamp. Now, auto is really great on this one because if you're riding and it suddenly gets dark, you don't have to think about turning the lights back on. Leave it on this. It's really neat. It'll just turn the headlights back on for you. But again, if you want to have full control, you can put it into manual. And I love that about this bike. Backlight is for the actual display. Again, you have auto, night, and day. So just like your headlight and your daytime running lamp, if it is in auto mode, the backlight will go to dark, and if it's in day mode, or I'm sorry, auto mode during the day, it'll actually go to light so you can see things easier. But if you like the black background versus the white background, you can play with this and kind of select the one you want. I like auto, so I'll leave it back on auto again. Pin code. Now the bike does not have a keyless option on there, but it's good to get in here and put your own pin on here. So if you go to modify pin, it'll ask you for your current pin, which on the bike, because it's brand new, should be all zeros, and it'll tell you it's correct. And then you can go in here and add a new one. I'm gonna do zeros again because it is our demo. This is a good thing to have just in case you somehow lose your main key and can just get a regular key that'll work the ignition. Because the key is coded, it needs to have that chip in there, and if you don't have it, then it'll ask you for a pin, just to make sure that no one's messing with you and trying to steal your bike from you. After pin code, you've got date and time. Now, if you want to set this one and your dealership hasn't done it for you yet, you click enter and you go into set date and set time. What's cool with set date is it just lets you pick the year, month, and the day. And then this is already correct, so I'll just go through it by pressing enter. And then when you're done with that, you hit enter again. And then when you want to do time, same thing, scroll down to it, press enter, select your time, press enter again, and it'll get you out of this. Hit back. Next one is your service. This is really neat just for you to see how long you have before your next oil change and your Desmo service. So currently, because this is our demo and only has a couple hundred miles on there, the next oil change is at 450 miles from now, and the Desmo service is not until 18,450 miles from now. We're gonna go back. And again, your lap timer, you can kind of play with that one when you're at the track. Tire calibration. This is really neat. If you're going to put, let's say, slicks on this motorcycle to run on the track, it's a really good idea to use your tire calibrator so that your traction and your ABS and the total IMU on the bike can be properly set for those tires, and it'll work better for you. You basically press enter on this one, and then you can tell it to start, and it'll ask you to ride the bike at a certain speed, and it'll do the calibration for you. So pretty easy going. Below that one, you have your turn indicators. Much like the headlight and the backlight of this motorcycle's dash, the turn indicators are also auto off function. You can turn that off if you want to, but basically if you turn the turn signal on and forget to turn it off, it'll actually shut it off for you after a while. And then the measurement units is going to be miles versus kilometers and Fahrenheit versus Celsius. And the info is just going to tell us what kind of battery we got going on in this one. And exit. And that covers your motorcycle. If you have any questions about this, let me know what I haven't covered for you, and I'll try and be a little more detailed. And that concludes the walk around of your new Ducati 950 SuperSport. I hope you have such a good time on this bike and have a lot of good adventures. Let us know where you're going to ride yours. I'm really, really curious to see where you're going to enjoy this amazingly versatile motorcycle.